Welcome to Retro Gaming Radio. I'm Shane Armandoyle, your host, comprehensive online. Welcome to Retro Gaming Radio. Welcome to Retro Gaming Radio. Comprehensive online. I'm Shane Armandoyle, your host. Welcome to the program. Hi, folks. Welcome to the August 2002 edition of Retro Gaming Radio, featuring our special Classic Gaming Expo 2002 pre-show coverage. I'm Shane Armandoyle, your host. Thank you for tuning in. Folks, we got such a huge show here to do. I've got to get right to it. As it stands, it's probably going to break over an hour as it is. So let's get busy. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about response to the last show's emails. We got a whole bunch of stuff in it. I want to talk about that. We're going to tell you about some of the new features and new goodies we have here at Retro Gaming Radio and RetroGamingRadio.com's website. We're going to look around the web and start telling you about some very interesting stuff that's been coming out. Some great new sites are coming up. Some old websites that are great friends to the classic gaming community are coming back. Some product updates, all that good stuff. Then we're going to have a nice long Classic Gaming Expo 2002 pre-show. We're going to tell you a little bit about what happened last year for those of you who might have missed previous shows. And we're going to tell you about all the killer people and everything that you have to see this year. And if after this show you don't want to go, beg, borrow, and plead to go to Classic Gaming Expo, I don't know what else I can do for you, folks, because after building the pre-show script that I always do for the show, kind of give myself an outline what I want to talk about, I'll tell you what, folks, I was incredibly excited, and it's hard for me to contain my enthusiasm knowing that by the time you hear the show, that Classic Gaming Expo will just be 10 days away. It's just incredible. I'm all excited here. And anybody who's been to Classic Gaming knows exactly what I'm talking about. And finally, we're going to wrap up and tell you what we are personally doing for Classic Gaming Expo. As you do know, we are going to have a booth, and we've got all sorts of goodies going on. So let's go ahead and get started. The last show that we talked about was basically the death of 2D gaming. And a lot of folks wrote in and expressed that, yeah, you're right, 2D gaming, especially good 2D gaming, is quickly sliding to a halt, and some of them offered some interesting insights. One individual wrote in and said that nobody will want to play 3D on a little tiny screen. I have to beg to differ with that one. I believe that people will play games on whatever you give them, be it a cell phone, be it a 2D handheld, a 3D handheld. Whatever you give them, they'll play it. And I think that 3D is something that is very possible. They've got a 3D chip now that are in Japanese cell phones that allow 3D rendered characters on the screen. It's not far away, folks. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. One guy actually wrote in and said, hey, I think the web is going to be the next frontier of 2D games. And right now, that does seem to be the case. PopCap Games, which is created Bejeweled and a lot of the other games that are really hot on the web right now, they seem to be successfully making 2D games that still sell and people still play. But you notice that it's only what I call desktop distractions that people actually will tolerate in 2D anymore. The solitaires, the Tetrises, the Bejeweleds, those are the only things that people really go for in 2D now. They don't really take them as serious games, which is really too bad. What can I pop on a web page while I'm at work and during lunch or right before lunch or whenever you kill time on the web and jump in there and slam down a game of Bejeweled? So that maybe that's the case. But Shockwave and Lingo and Macromedia are fastly improving 3D technology inside of Shockwave, and there are already 3D pool games you can play, billiard games that you can play. So I don't think that the web will even tolerate 2D much longer, which is really too bad. Probably the most important thing I got. Well, okay, let's not skip ahead here. I did get a letter from our friends over at Sony Electronic Entertainment of Europe. And they weren't too pleased about how we basically said that publishers are whores and that they're controlling everything. They're not letting good games being made. They're being driven by the almighty dollar, and that's pretty much it. Well, the guys at Sony Europe weren't very happy about that, and I basically got a mail saying I'm too mad to talk about it right now, but when I cool down, you and I can go at it. Well, hopefully he will still write back. I'd hate to lose him as a listener because he actually seemed like he cared. And while Sony Entertainment of Europe may actually do care in some cases, I believe, and as it turns out I was right, that a lot of big publishers really are exactly the way I branded them. Which leads me to the next little segment I want to talk about. I had a developer write in from a big company, big publishing company. Everybody who's listening to my voice has heard of this company, but I can't tell you what it is. Journalistic integrity and confidentiality. He wrote in, and basically he said, not only are you right, but it's worse than you think. And he and I got into a string of emails over and over that basically astounded me. I knew it was bad. I didn't think it was that bad. So suffice to say, in the future, I'm going to call him the mystery developer, has agreed to do some shows. We're going to have a segment of this developer coming on the show. His voice and identity will be protected. I'm not going to sell him out to anybody. And he is going to tell us exactly what's going on behind the scenes at one of the largest publishing houses in the world. And you're going to be just totally stunned, folks. You're going to be totally stunned. But anyway, thank you for everyone for writing in. I don't have time to actually read letters this month. We have too much to cover. But do keep the letters coming in. I do value your opinion, be it for or against what we say on the show. I try to reply to everybody. I've got a whole bunch in my queue still that I haven't answered from last month. I'm sorry, things are just a little crazy around here. So what's new at Retro Gaming Radio? Well, we have expanded our website area a little bit. We've added some forums, some discussion forums for you guys to sound off on the show, about the show rather, and there are a lot of people already starting to use it. I encourage all Retro Gaming Radio listeners to hit the forums. You can get to it off the main site and check them out. And go ahead and share your views with others. We'll check the forums. Myself and my producer Brian Smith check the forums pretty much every day, and we respond. As you can already tell, there's huge threads on there that we've already talked about. So please do check out the forums. If you'll go to the CGE area, we've already started putting up content from CGE 2001 so that you guys can kind of get a feel for what was going on there. We kind of waited to the last minute for this one, but we do have very hectic schedules. We do have day jobs. Some of us have more than one, so we're doing the best we can with what we've got. We have started working on preparations for the Classic Gaming Expo. My producer Brian Smith is going to fly down here to Phoenix. We're going to hook up, and we're going to go over a lot of the pre-show stuff. We've got a lot of interviews to do, folks, and you're going to understand why when you hear about the list of people that are going to be at the Classic Gaming Expo this year. Absolutely unbelievable. So Brian and I are going to sit down and hash out a lot of the details that we're not able to hash out throughout the month. We also have 10 limited edition Classic Gaming Expo 2002 specific Year 3 CD-ROM titles to sell at the show. There's only going to be 10 of them. They're going to be $14.95 a piece, 2 CDs. You can look at those CD on the site. What makes this version special is that it is numbered and basically, I signed it and put a little note on there, and I also labeled it as the Classic Gaming Expo 2002, and they're each numbered. So there's only going to be 10 of them. Once the 10 are gone, they're gone. If you can order the CD online when you get home. So if you want one, you better get to the booth quick, because I don't think the 10 are going to last very long. But part of what makes something special is that there's not a lot of them. So that was something that a couple of people asked if we were going to do. Sure, we're going to do that. We also went through and remastered some of the audio on the CD. We included the last few shows that weren't originally on the Year 3 CD. So the good news is you're going to get a shot at a good goodie like that, and we may actually give one away as a promotion. We haven't quite decided on that. We've got other stuff to do with that. We actually have our new banner, our new logo, rather, that you've seen on the site, sort of the Pac-Man microphone planet thing. We really like it, and we've adopted that as our official logo. And we will have a banner at the booth. Look for our banner to find our booth, since we don't have a booth number yet, but I'm sure it'll be in the book. Speaking of which, we do have a half-page ad in the book, in the Classic Gaming Expo memorial book. I don't know what they exactly officially call that, but we do have an ad in there, so look for that. I talked to Don Bluth and Company today, and He is actually going to be at the show. We're going to talk a lot more about this later. But he is going to be giving us an interview. So we will feature that in a future edition. And be paying attention, folks, because there's a special giveaway coming up towards the end of the show. And not only do you get to have your cool questions answered, you get a chance to win a really cool prize by giving us questions to ask all of these famous celebrities that are going to be at the show. So stick around to the end of the show for that. That's about what's going on at Retro Gaming Radio. It's been really chaotic trying to get everything put together and get the show ready, and it's just amazing the amount of prep work. Plus, of course, we are representing X Arcade at the Classic Gaming Expo. So we also have all of that sort of affiliation we've got to go through as well. But my problems are not your problems, at least not yet. Let's take a look at what's happening around the web. This is something I'd like to eventually work in as a regular part of the show, but there's been so much activity lately that I just had to bring it up. Some of our old friends from long days past are back or coming back, and we've got some great new stuff. Well, they're actually not even new, things that have been around a long time that the show really is kind of neglected talking about, and I feel kind of bad about that. Plus, there's been some product updates and more, so let's get on with that. First of all, those of you who've been following the scene for a while know that retro gaming and the popularity of retro gaming runs in a sine wave. It gets very, very popular for a while, and then of course the bargain bins fill up with all these classic remakes, and then it just drops. Every site on the planet goes down. ROM sites are pulled down. Classic gaming just kind of recesses into nowhere. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it'll all come back to a head. I mean, all of a sudden there's ROM sites again. All of a sudden the IDSA doesn't seem to care. Nintendo's not shutting people down for offering Mario Kart ROMs. And then everybody gets all excited again. It's like a whole new set of people find out about it. But as of late, that sine wave's kind of tapered off, and there just hasn't been the kind of excitement that there used to be. I mean, let's be honest. When MAME, the multiple arcade machine emulator, when MAME came out back in the old days, the .27, .26 versions, people skipped work, didn't go to work waiting for releases. They called in sick because a new MAME might be released that day. That's crazy. But people did. The channels, the IRC channels, crowded with people. I was getting 100 emails a day saying, when's the new MAME coming out? Come on, you got inside sources, because I was running Insert Coin back then. Probably the second biggest emulation site on the planet at that time. And people were writing me saying, when's the new MAME coming out? When's the new MAME coming out? And for a while, I was actually on the MAME dev team, and I did know when it was coming out, but of course we couldn't tell anybody. So that kind of ruined the fun out of that. But it was crazy. It was a whole different... There was a passion that you don't see anymore, and that applies to a lot of stuff, and that's going to be a subject of one of my rants in a future episode, of just the seemingly lack of passion that anybody has for anything. I deserve to have it, and you deserve to give it to me. I don't know. It kind of falls into that generation gimme thing, but more on that. I don't want to get off track. But when MAME used to come out, it used to be just madhouse. Then RetroCade showed up. And MAME and RetroCade, there was like a big feud. I mean, they never tried to fight with each other. But, there was MAME saying, well, we're a documentation project. We don't really care how good the games run. That's not what we're here for. Now, of course, you notice that tune has changed a lot since the old days. But then you've got RetroCade saying, you know what? We only got 120 games, but they is smooth and they is fast. And you 486 people that are still out there, guess what? Our emulator will run on your machine. And people went nuts. This is what people wanted. People wanted the best of both worlds. They wanted tons and tons of titles, which they got in MAME, and they wanted the mega super killer fast RetroCade. And by the way, on a side note here, while we're talking about RetroCade, at one time there was a beta, which nobody really saw except for the beta team, of RetroCade for Windows. As you know, RetroCade was a DOS project. And of course it doesn't run on NT or XP, which pretty much, for the most of the people I know, counts them out. So with that in mind, RetroCade's leader, Neil Bradley, finally came forward and said, hey, anybody really interested in Win RetroCade anymore? All of us, piped up and said, hell yeah, we're interested, Now you need like a P2 or a P3 800 to play Pac-Man and MAME. And so, of course, we were interested in having a nice, fast emulator. And, of course, what really made RetroCade cool, folks, is it just oozed with style. I mean, these cool, metallic-looking interface. You didn't need a front end. You didn't have to do a DOS prompt. You ran it. You know, this hot chick came up and introducing RetroCade, and, they showed you the stats. It was just like, it was like being introduced to a whole new generation of emulators. Well, RetroCade's coming back, folks. He's working right now on getting a lot of the bugs out and basically getting the core stuff to work in Windows. And having seen a beta, I can tell you it's coming along great. I'd say probably a good 80% of the games work as they should. There's still some sound issues, as there always are with emulators. That's so funny. Sound always seems to be the problem with emulators. Someday I'll ask one of the EMU programmers why that is, why sound seems to be such a bear for everybody. But anyway, so they're working on a new release. I've seen the beta. It's not vaporware. It's doing very, very well, and hopefully you'll see a release soon. If you're going to CGE, you will see RetroCade at CGE. Not only myself will be running it, which we have permission to show off. Of course, we'll be using the X Arcade. And also, there's going to be a vector project that will be using RetroCade to pump vector games like Asteroids and Battlezone to an actual vector display. Think of it like, basically sort of a main box, but it's vector. It's just, the way he talks about it just makes it sound totally cool. And there's screenshots floating around the net somewhere. I think, either that or they were private. I can't remember if he sent me some privately. Suffice to say, folks, you will want to find this guy, because he's going to be running a booth showing this stuff off, or drop by the Retro Gaming Radio booth, which I hope you do anyway, because I want to meet you guys. And check that out, because that's something that's really, really exciting. So RetroCade kind of makes a big splash on its way back in, which is kind of nice. And something about, when I talk about the retro gaming scene waxing and waning, as you know, we didn't produce shows for about 8 months at one time. We had a blackout period where, things just weren't interesting anymore. Nobody cared. Nobody cared about classic gaming anymore. The sites were down. Nobody was posting news. And eventually it got to the point where we didn't have a show. Nobody was listening. Nobody cared about classic gaming. So we took a hiatus. We went on an 8-month vacation, so to speak, from the show. And when I went to the Classic Gaming Expo in August of last year, I knew it wasn't dead. I saw the people. I watched the people. I watched people glued to these ancient-ass machines from 20 years ago. And I realized, walking around, that it's not gone. There's web presence, regardless of what the topic is, always wax and wane based on some freaky lunar cycle that only the most highly decorated scientists know about. I certainly don't understand it. The popularity wax and wanes just like everything else. And I went to the show, and of course, I hadn't run a show in 8 months, so I didn't expect anybody to recognize me. We weren't promoting ourselves. We weren't wearing retro gaming radio T-shirts or anything. We were just walking around. And I was talking to one of the programmers about trying to hook up with an interview with him. And some guy said, "Oh, retro gaming radio? Yeah, I listened to that." He's like, "You're Shane?" I'm like, "Yeah." And this guy, I was as happy to see him as he was happy to see me. And that was that. I looked over at Brian and I said, "Dude, we got to bring retro radio back." And he's like, "That's what I've been trying to tell you, dumbass." I think he slapped me upside the head. And it worked. A little sense got knocked in and we restarted the show. So if it can inspire somebody, to get out of an 8-month hiatus, hey, what can it do for you? Okay, wow, I got sidetracked there. Let's talk about what else is going on around the web. There is an Archon mod for Quake 3. Now, somebody sent this to me and I'm like, wait a minute. You're going to play Archon on the Quake 3 engine. Huh. I got to see that. And of course, I don't have Quake 3, folks. That's not my kind of game. I don't have that. I don't have it installed. And I thought, you know what? If you're going to use a 3D engine for something, instead of another blatant first-person shooter, Archon might be a pretty cool thing. So while I haven't played it, I've looked at the screenshots, and I've heard people say that it's pretty cool. I challenge any of you folks that are Quake fans that have got Quake installed, go grab the Archon mod and drop us a line at retrogamingradio.com. Drop us a line and tell us what you think. I'd love to know. I'd go out and buy Quake 3 tomorrow if Archon really was that good on it. I thought, what a clever thing. Archon that runs in a 3D engine. Cool. It can't be any worse than Archon Ultra, folks. That's all I can say about that. Something I want to talk about, too, now, and this is going to be a double-edged sword. It's going to come back and bite me in the ass later, but you know what? I've never pulled any punches with my listeners. I'm not about to start now. You expect me to tell you the straight skinny, I'm going to tell you the straight skinny. I'm talking, of course, about the Act Labs light gun. Now, more than one of you have written to me saying, what do you guys know about the light gun? We've been promised it for months. We still haven't seen it. No one's talked about the prototypes of it. They keep saying it's coming. I spent money. I pre-ordered or whatever. And these guys are starting to freak out. Is this vaporware? Is this not the real deal? These guys have been advertising for months. And I'll tell you something. And I'm going to be straight shooter with you. And Act Labs can get all pissy with me if they want. But I was promised one of these guns months ago. And then I actually was told that in the middle of July I'd get one. So basically, I was hoping to have one so that I could promote it at the show. I mean, I want people to be able to play Mad Dog McCree at the show with a light gun. Or be able to play Duck Hunt. I mean, it's a Nintendo title, but Duck Hunt was pretty cool, right? There's tons. Crossbow. I would kill to play crossbow right now with a light gun. That'd just be way cool. So I wrote to them and they said, yeah, we're getting close. We've done this. We're going to ramp up some beta units and we're going to send them out to the press middle of July. Well, it's a little past the middle of July and I gave him a call. Well, I didn't give him a call. I sent him an email and he says, no, it's going to be 3 weeks into August. I'm like, 3 weeks into August? That's like a month and a half away. You guys have been churning at this forever. And then it occurred to me, I was talking to my producer, Brian, and it's like, dude, why would you not fall over yourself to give the press, not necessarily me, I'm just saying the press in general, even, if they've got to be far enough along in the process, folks, where it's not broken. There's probably issues, and I know there are issues, because I know a developer that has one. That's Digital Leisure. And I trust them beyond a shadow of a doubt. If they say they've got one of these guns and it works, then they've got one of these guns and it works. They said there are some issues. They wouldn't expand on them. Probably under NDA, but they said it works, and they're developing Mad Dog McCree to work with it. The only reason I'm not roasting Act Labs alive at this point for vaporware practices, because that's exactly what we're talking about. Promise, date slip, promise, pre-order, poof, the company vanishes. All the pre-order people go, what the hell's going on? Where's all my money? And, I'm not saying that that's what Act Labs is going to do. I'm saying that vaporware companies, that's what they do. They build up this rapport. They tell everybody how great the product is. They promise product to the review people. They get a lot of pre-orders based on the talk that they generate with the promises of the hardware. A bunch of people pre-order, then they just go away. They vanish. All right? So what I'm telling you, and you can take this to the bank, do not pre-order. I mean, I know Act Lab's going to be pissed that I said that, but you know what? Protect yourselves first, folks. Your money, your family's money. Protect yourself. Wait until somebody's got one that you trust. Now, I can tell you Digital Leisure's got one, and you can say, oh, that's good enough for me. But you didn't hear it from me. You didn't hear it from everybody else that was promised a gun that's going to review it and tell you, hey, this is how good, this is the issue. One of the things they weren't mentioning is it doesn't work in DOS main. You as if you have arcade cabinets, this ain't going to work in DOS main, but you notice they don't really talk about that on the site. That's something that the press has to talk about. Brian actually said to me, it's probably the fact that they're holding off. They're not going to give you an advance copy. They're going to wait until they ship all their pre-orders, have lots of money, before the press gets a chance to badmouth it, if there's things wrong with it. Right? And that makes sense to me. That seems to be solid if you're worried about your product. Now, I don't know what they have to be worried about, folks, to be honest with you. They seem to be on the up and up. I'm telling you, words of wisdom, I have seen this sort of thing go an entirely different direction, and it's not a good thing. Don't pre-order. Hold your dollars until somebody tells you it's good to go. Nobody wants a Windows-compatible light gun more than me. And I've just got to warn you guys. You guys are my homies, and I'm not going to let you guys get stuck with this. Once again, Digital Leisure says they've got one and that it works. So there's a couple of issues, but they're developing it with it. So you got to take that at your own accord, folks. Also, I read an interesting article, and we lost the link to it. If anybody has the link to this, please pass it along. It was an ABC News article that they went to a bunch of kids, a bunch of new generation kids, and asked them if they knew what Pong was. Obviously, me mentioning it should let you know that the response wasn't very favorable. And it was interesting. The article was very insightful. And if you look at it, it's the same thing with just about anything else. What the hell's vinyl? People still think that these new covers that are coming out are new music. And they're not. Right? So why should video games be any different? It's a very interesting article. If anybody has a link to it, please pass it along. I consider that, I would title that article Generation Gimme's Loss, basically. Speaking of hardware stuff, X Arcade, of course, that we're affiliated with X Arcade. They're not our sponsors or anything, of course, so we can badmouth them if we want to. However, we haven't found anything to badmouth them about yet. They are now offering Apple Macintosh support for the X Arcade. So those of you who just don't have PCs and don't have a GameCube or a PlayStation 2 or a Dreamcast or an Xbox or any of these other controllers, interfaces that these guys support, you got a Mac, guess what? You get to play MAME Robotron with 2 joysticks too. Life is good. So definitely check out xarcade.com. That's x-arcade.com. Go check it out, and they've got lots of pictures. And, of course, you'll be able to find out lots more about them at CGE when you come to the booth, hint, hint, and visit, hint, with us at the Classic Gaming Expo. There's been a lot of sites that have been relaunched lately. Some really neat sites that have been gone for a long time and you never thought would come back. AtariInvader.com, which we've mentioned on the show before, they had a new website relaunch. The really cool EmuViews. Remember EmuViews? Those of you who've been around long enough know about Jose Q's EmuViews. It was pretty much the emulation news site. I mean, that's where everybody went. And it was really popular, but, everybody gets burned out, folks. Believe me, I've ran a site like that, and you just get burned out. Jose went away, and now he's excited about coming back. So look in the future for EmuViews.com to come back into the picture. We're really, really excited here at Retro Gaming Radio to know that EmuViews is coming back. He had and has a unique style all of his own. And also, EmuViews is hosted by SpeedHost, the same folks that host us. Jose Q is a good friend of the show, and he provides us with bandwidth for the show. The fact that you're listening here is a favor from him. So, go check out his site, EmuViews.com, when it comes back up. A couple of other sites that have come back, The Last Outpost and Digital Arcade. Some really neat sites, and of course, we'll be posting links for those there on the page there while you're listening to the show. Also, something else, I'd like to bring up, and I've kind of neglected these guys, and they've been around for years and years, and every time I put it in my queue to mention them on the show, I don't, and I feel bad about it. Retro Gaming Times, it's a newsletter, it's a web-based newsletter. You can go, they're up to issue 59, and they're great people. Their articles are interesting. They always talk about something cool, and they're up to issue 59. Of course, we're going to post a link there. This year, issue, they talk about the many faces of Robotron, which, of course, Robotron has a place near and dear to our hearts here at Retro Gaming Radio. So do check them out, and let them know we sent you over there. I don't think they've ever mentioned the show, so maybe it's time for us to correspond a little bit. Anybody who's basically doing in print what we do for audio, they're all right in our book. I'll tell you that. Tomorrow's heroes, as they say. Okay, let's move along here now that I've yapped for 30 minutes completely on stuff that has nothing at all what to do with the Classic Gaming Expo. Let's talk about what happened last year at the Classic Gaming Expo. I really want to discuss what happened. We've had a couple of shows where we've talked about the Classic Gaming Expo. But for those of you who don't want to go back and dig and try to find the show, this is the pre-show. So we're telling you what happened last year. We all met, we carpooled up, first of all, which is kind of funny. There's several people here in town in Phoenix that make the caravan voyage up there. We all pair up in cars and double up and triple up in cars to save gas and to kind of get that fellowship thing going on. We get up there and we check in, of course, to the Plaza Hotel. which is where you want to stay, folks, if you're going to the Classic Gaming Expo. They got discount prices for CGE guys. We're going to talk about that later. But we hooked up, and of course, I haven't really been to Vegas. I'd driven through it a couple times, but I didn't get a chance to really see what it was like. And it's amazing. They have this laser light show outside that happens like every hour. It's just, the atmosphere is totally different than anything else you've ever seen. You walk down in the lobby and there's, just wall to wall slot machines and gambling tables. It's wild. If you've been there, it's like, no big deal. But if you've never been there, it's like a different planet when you get in there. The evenings in the hotel room, it's so funny. Nobody actually ends up in their own room. Everybody kind of finds a room and we all kind of hang out in the same place. I remember that Brian King, who runs ArcadeRestoration.com, Brian King came over and he was showing us, I think, the latest version of his Pengo clone, which is called Frostbite Freddy, which I can't ever get him to talk about on the show because he thinks people expect him to finish it. He should finish it. It's a totally killer rendition of Pengo. Anyway, he was showing us a new version of Pengo. Brian, on the second day, bought an Atari Lynx, which we really need to do a special edition show about the Atari Lynx because it deserves it. He got an Atari Lynx, and we were playing Joust hooked up. You've seen some pictures of Brian sitting on the hotel bed playing his Lynx. It's just amazing. Just these people all linked up. It's cool. It's sort of like a LAN party, only like you're playing cool games instead of like Quake. So anyway, the evenings in the hotel rooms, you sit up till 2, 3 in the morning. You can't sleep. You know what's going to happen the next day. You're going to go in. There's going to be every video game you've ever wanted to play on the planet in there. Can't sleep, so you sit around and you yap. You yap and you play Lynx and you play MAME on the laptop. It's totally cool. Providing you have a caravan to hang out with. And then, of course, when you actually get into the show. Now, for those of you who've been to E3, you know this overwhelming sense of, wow. Well, E3 stunned me the first time I went. Classic Gaming Expo did even more. I actually had things I wanted to do. At E3, it was like run around and see stuff and fill your bag with goodies. That's what E3 was all about when I went. But CG's different. It's just like, oh, look, those guys are selling Lynx cartridges. Oh, those guys got Atari cartridges. And then you go into the museum, which they had last year, but I don't know if they're going to have one this year. And every old thing you can imagine is there. Game & Watch simulators, those little handheld things. There's a Halcon Laserdisc player in there, the ones that's supposed to be the home version of Dragon's Lair. That's in there. Revenge of the Jedi cartridges that were never released. They were prototype but never released. You go walk in there and it's like walking into your childhood. You see stuff that you saw on the shelves when you went to Toys R Us. It's crazy. they have like one of everything there. They have the Bally Astrocade. They have a Vectrex in the museum. It's nuts. You go in here and they have a security guard to make sure nobody touches anything. And I'd have 2 or 3 posts if I had my stuff in there. Then you got the keynote speeches where these famous people that you grew up knowing their names like the back of your hand, like David Crane and Don Bluth, you know these people, and here they are up in front of this audience telling stories. They're talking about how, one of them tripped and dumped, 50 punch cards of code. And for those of you who know about that, if you didn't label that stuff, you're pretty much screwed. Even if you did label it, you just lost 3 hours of your life you're never going to get back. But these guys are talking about, how the Starfield and Demon attack that they used was actually a glitch that they found in Missile Command, and you're just sitting there entranced. You can't help it. It's like being part of a cult. You start mumbling to yourself and rocking back and forth and chanting. No, never mind. Yeah, you do. Some of us do that, but, most of the normal people didn't. Anyway, you get to talk to the people. This isn't one of those things where you see Don Bluth, 75 feet away at a podium, and then he gets into this little black limousine, he drives away, and you never get to talk to him. When the keynote speeches are over, these guys are just wandering around the show. We nailed a whole bunch of guys down. It's like, hey, I went up to the guy that wrote Demon Attack and I said, thank you. I said, I spent half my life looking for Demon Attack for the Commodore 64. I played the crap out of it on the Atari. You changed my life. Thank you. And these guys don't know they changed people's lives. This was a job for them. This was, sure there was a load of passion involved in it, but you know what? These guys they weren't trying to be somebody's heroes. They were trying to earn a living. They were trying to bring something cool and new to make their company money. They were coming up with freaky-ass hardware exploits to try to push the last limits in the Atari 2600. A lot of them aren't even programmers anymore. They're plumbers, or, You go up to these guys, it's like, hey, so what are you doing now? You still writing video games, right? No. Who could blame them? If I had to write games on punch cards, I don't think I'd ever want to go back and do that again. But anyway, suffice to say that the atmosphere there, and of course there's video games everywhere to play. They're all set for free play. You walk around and you play everything that you loved as a kid. And there are lines, but you know what? There's not a lot of lines. It's not like you can slap a quarter up there. Twin Galaxies is running around having promotion and contest after contest. It's just there's so much to see and do. You look at the photographs that people post and you think, how much can there actually be there? That's kind of what I thought. When Ron was telling me, they had like 3,000 people there, I'm thinking, 3,000? Hell, there were 3,000 people waiting in line at E3 at the pre-registration booth. That's nothing. I couldn't figure out Ron's excitement with Classic Gaming Expo. And then when I finally went up, I understood. And if you're in that particular situation where you're thinking, you know what? It's this one little convention room in a hotel, they're talking like 3,000 people. How cool can it be? Trust me. It has nothing to do with that. There's so much to see and do. They got people playing old video game music in the background. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's something you have to experience or go on the word of somebody who's experienced it. So that's what I'm telling you. Go on my word. Let's talk about what's happening, though, since this is the pre-show show, and I've already talked like 40 minutes on, nothing about this year's show. There are a lot of, basically CGE is about three things. The people, the exhibits, and the tournaments and museums and the swap meet and the other extracurricular activities. Last year, by the way, there was a swap meet where basically you bring a box of all your old hardware, the stuff that you want to trade, you have extra card stuff, and you sit around and it's like a flea market. You walk around and say, you've got Kung Fu for the Atari Lynx, I'll trade you California games. Oh, cool. So it's this one guy brought in a box of stuff, like on a rarity list. You go on eBay and this crap's going for like $100, $200. This guy's got it loose in a box. And of course, this guy doesn't want to sell, he wants to trade. I can't produce anything this guy wants, but you know what? He had everything. You want an original Mattel football? There's one in the box. If you want Wildfire pinball, which I'm still looking for, it's in the box. I couldn't give him anything for it. I couldn't trade him anything for it. But to see all of that stuff in a box was just amazing. And it looked like he'd been there before, so hopefully he'll be here this year. The people. The people are what really make this show. The people that you grew up hearing their names, seeing their games, playing their games, seeing commercials about them. They're here. All right, I'm going to run down the list of. I can't go through everybody, and I apologize to the folks that I do not mention here. But I'm going to mention the ones that I really think that most of my listeners have a chance of hearing about. First of all, my personal hero, and you know what, you guys are probably sick to death of hearing me talk about him. But Don Bluth will be there, along with Gary Goldman, his right-hand guy, the number 2 guy, or I don't know how that works. They're partners, so I don't want to say number 1, number 2. Gary, get mad at me. But basically, the Bluth group is going to be there, including Rick Dyer. And Don Bluth, of course, for those of you who don't know, shame on you. You're not listening to the show enough. Don Bluth, of course, did the animation for Dragon's Lair Space Ace, some for Dragon's Lair 2. He, of course, animated some of the best animation of all time, animated feature films such as The Secret of Nim, which I don't think has yet to been beat as a traditional classic, traditional animation feature. Tons of other stuff, American Tail, Titan AE, Anastasia. The list goes on and on. The guy's brilliant. And one thing I want to mention about Don Bluth, a lot of people, I think, because he worked at Disney for so long. By the way, he up and left Disney, and when you hear the interview, you're going to hear all about that. But he up and left Disney, took all of his people with him. He worked on a bunch of stuff for Disney. I think he had some work on Cinderella. He was the lead animator on Pete's Dragon. I mean, everything you see in Pete's Dragon that's animated is his. Fox and the Hound, and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, you know the guy's work if you saw it, if you don't know who I'm talking about. Anyway, he's going to be there promoting the new Dragon's Lair 3D game, which is just totally cool. If you don't know about it, go search the web for it. I don't want to talk too much about it here, but you'll see all about that. I'm sure it's about ready to be released, so I'm sure we're going to see a lot more than we saw last year. They are going to be signing posters, I guess, for about an hour. I don't think it's going to be the poster fest that it was last year, because I think they're a lot more short on time after talking to his publicist today. So they're maybe going to have like an hour to sign posters. So when you hear that they're signing posters, or you know they're going to, get your ass in line if you want one, because I think it's going to be tight. They're also going to be talking, hopefully, they're going to mention their new Dragon's Lair movie, which is in pre-production. They're doing script rewrites, last I heard, and yours truly was promised to look at the script once it was done. They apparently like selective third-party feedback. I'm sure I'll be under non-disclosure, so I'm not going to be able to tell you a lot about it, but at least I can give you some basic feedback on, is it going to be cool? I'm sure it's going to be because Bluth's attached to it, but we'll see. Titan AE wasn't exactly what everybody had in mind. While I liked it, a lot of people didn't care for it. I'm hoping Dragon's Lair, the movie, is a pure, traditional, classic, hand-drawn and animated film. It would be so much better if it was. Okay, so let's get off Don Bluth. You've heard enough about Don Bluth. Al Alcorn is going to be there. Now, I didn't recognize the name either, but this guy made Pong. Okay, how much more do you need to know? The guy made Pong. Poof, that's all you need to know about him. He also helped found Atari in the beginning days. Steve Cartwright's going to be there. Now, I know you guys go, oh, Steve Cartwright, man, that name sounds really familiar. Sounded familiar to me, too. Lots of Activision people that are going to be at the show this year. And Steve Cartwright was responsible for one of everybody's favorite 2600 games, Mega Mania, and for one of my personal favorite 2600 games, Barnstorming. I know a lot of people didn't like Barnstorming. I can't figure out why. Barnstorming was like Stampede. It's a game you just loved. Whether you hated it or not, you had to love it. The Howard Stern of 2600 cartridges. Of course, David Crane. Now, I know David Crane's going to be there. Co-founder of Activision. And, of course, he was responsible for the brilliant game Pitfall. Which, if I'd say Pitfall and you don't know what I'm talking about, you're listening to the wrong show. I think you should have made a left turn at Albuquerque. Okay? Rick Dyer, of course, is going to be there. And Rick Dyer is the hardware brilliance behind Dragon's Lair Space Ace. That hardware, he also was the developer of the Halicon home version of Dragon's Lair Space Age, which was only briefly sold. And, of course, he was also responsible for the technology behind Time Traveler, the quote-quote holographic game that you saw that was in arcades, not even that long ago, that used that kind of cool hologram technology. It's not a true hologram, I know. I don't need any bitch letters about that. But it was cool looking all the same. Rick Dyer was behind that. He will be there as well. Joey Hedden, I hope I'm pronouncing these names right, he is responsible for Star Glider on the Apple II. Now, everybody loves Star Glider. I never played the Apple II version of it. I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, though, because the 64 version kicked major ass. But more importantly, to me anyway, Joey was also responsible for the Pac-Man 20th Anniversary Edition for the PlayStation 1, which, as you know, if you've been following the show, I did a review of, and it was very favorable. It was something that showed that you could make a follow-up game borrowing from the original, changing the gameplay, and still retaining what made it something about it. I mean, sometimes you can't put into words when something's right, I don't know what I like, but I know what I don't like. I did not like anything about that one. Yeah, it's double negative there. So Joey Hedden's going to be there. Gary Kitchen. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. Gary Kitchen's going to be there. Keystone Capers for the 2600. And, of course, for you diehard 64 heads like myself, he was also responsible for Gary Kitchen's Game Maker, which was so far ahead of its time that people didn't know what to do with it. I never really saw any games made with Game Maker, but I actually used it. And it's like, this is so powerful, I don't even know where to begin. And he also did Designer's Pencil, which was a very original graphics program for the Commodore 64. Tim Skelly, basically, I should know this guy's name, folks, and I don't, which is horrible. This guy was basically responsible for every cool vector game that's out there. Star Castle, right? Anything from Cinematronic. Star Castle, Armor Attack, Tail Gunner, all those games that you play and name that are vector that are like totally cool, that's him. That's Tim Skelly. He's going to be there, okay? Jay Smith, the guy that made the Vectrex, the portable home version of the Vector arcade machine, he's going to be there. Can't wait to talk to him. Vectrex rocks. Robert G. Smith, this guy is my freaking hero. This guy, he made video pinball for the Atari 2600, okay? We'll forgive him for that. But this is the guy that made those cool iMagic games for the 2600, Star Voyager, Riddle of the Sphinx, and of course Dragonfire, which, I'm sorry, that sucked up so much of my free time I don't even want to begin to talk about it. But he's going to be there. That's totally cool. I hope I can get an interview with him. He just rocks. Now, of course, I'm going to give you the name on everybody's list, Howard Scott Warshaw. And you're going, who the hell is that, Shane? I don't know the name Howard Scott Warshaw. This is the guy that blessed us and cursed us. He blessed us with two of what I think are probably the best 2600 cartridges available, which is Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I thought was brilliant work. It was the next successor to Adventure, which was cool in its own right, but this time it was done completely right. And Yar's Revenge. And if I say Yar's Revenge, and again you don't get it, you're definitely turned to the wrong station. Now, what's the curse he gave us? I'm sorry to say he was also responsible for E.T. on the 2600. Now, one of my fans wrote in, one of the listeners wrote in and said, you know what? I actually finished E.T. And it took me about 20 minutes before the stunned silence, passed over me where I could actually respond to this guy. Because, folks, if you've never played E.T. on the 2600, don't. Okay, save your sanity. Save yourself. Okay. The 2600 ET is like the inverse holy grail of video games. First of all, it's not rare because it came in boxes of Cheerios, I think, at the end. There's landfills filled with thousands of these cartridges that nobody bought. And let's just face it, the game wasn't very good. It was a movie tie-in, so I've got to give him at least that much. And my guess would be that Howard probably didn't have a lot of design say. It's hard to say, because when you get a property like E.T. and you got Spielberg leaning over your shoulder going, no. You got to listen to him. So we're going to forgive Howard Scott Warshaw the fact that he did E.T., and we're going to praise him for the fact that he made Yar's Revenge and Raiders of the Lost Ark, because Raiders of the Lost Ark is cool. That's kind of a quick lineup of the folks that are going to be there, the people you just can't miss. I don't know how I'm going to get to all these keynote speeches, folks. I'm going to have to send my guys over to them and hopefully record the shows, because I'm going to be sitting around doing interviews, hopefully. Some of the exhibitors that I'd like to bring to, I've talked about a lot of exhibitors in the past shows, but there's a couple I'd really like to bring into frame that I think really, really need to be promoted here. Digital Press. These guys have been around a long time. In fact, if you've ever looked up a rarity guide on the web to see how much your cartridge is worth, Digital Press is probably the people that created that rarity guide. Okay? These guys have been a good friend to the classic gaming community. So do stop by and pick up your rarity guides and your Digital Press books from there. The Fresno Commodore Users Group is going to be there. Robert Bernardo is going to be there on hand. He's going to be promoting the 20th anniversary of Commodore and showing off some interesting Commodore items. I'll tell you what, I can't wait to see what he brings. I want to see a lipstick from the C64. I'd love to see a full motion video cartridge on the CD32. I mean, if you wanted to talk about amazing Commodore items, I want to see an ice pick. Those of you who remember what the first cracking cartridge was on the Commodore 64 was the ice pick. I mean, trust me, there's so many things that he could produce that would just get me giddy as a schoolgirl. I can't wait to see what they bring. Somebody that really needs some promotion just because they're such a good friend to our community is the Songbird Productions. They are still making games for the Atari Jaguar and the Atari Lynx. They put out a couple games a year, which isn't bad for an independent, one guy shop development team. And they've put some really cool games together. And of course, they're some of the very few people that are still making new original games for classic consoles. So we really feel you should give them your support too. And of course, the good folks at Twin Galaxies, which have been basically the Guinness Book of World Records for video games since video games were popular. Walter Day, good friend of the show, good friend of mine, good friend of the classic gaming community, will be there. Ron Corcoran, of course, which I've had on the show before. They're going to be running competition after competition. They've got decathlons running. The Twin Galaxies folks go well above the Call of Duty for what a classic gaming show like this should get. These guys go really over the limit. So, when you see Walter Day running around his little referee outfit, shake his hand and say thanks. This guy's been doing this forever, folks. So for those of you who don't know yet about Classic Gaming Expo in terms of cost and whatnot, they did advanced registration, which means you got a discount Of course, advanced registration is now closed. It's still too close to showtime. You can still pre-register, which means you don't have to buy tickets there. Basically, it's going to be $30 for a weekend pass, and if you're at the door, it's going to cost you $35 or $20 for Saturday and $15 for Sunday. Okay, good deal. Go to the site. You can pay with PayPal, or you can order through the mail, or you can do it at the show. Trust me, folks, you don't want to be stuck in line at the show. It sucked last year. Don't do that. The souvenir show program, of course, will be included with that price. And you'll get a name badge if you pre-register. Otherwise, you'll just get a pass. So you want a pass with your name on it, go to the site right now, cgexpo.com, and pre-register now. One thing I'd like to point out, they get a lot of good deals. The Classic Gaming folks arrange some really nice deals for folks who are coming to the expo. I haven't even seen this in other bigger shows. The Plaza Hotel gives a great discount rate of $40 a night for Sunday and Friday night, or for Thursday night if you're staying over, and Sunday night if you're staying over. It's $40 a night, or it's $60 a night for Friday and Saturday night. If you mention CGE when you call, I would go to the Classic Gaming Expo page and use their phone number and follow their instructions so you get $60 a night. Come on, Plaza Hotel, $60 a night. I mean, even if you don't go to the show and you're going to Vegas, say that you're going to the show and get a room for $60 a night. That's incredible. For the Plaza Hotel. It's like $120 a night for that place. Southwest Air is offering a 10% discount for people going to the show, to and from the show. Continental Airlines is offering 5-10% discount. The Payless Allstate car rentals are offering some really nice prices on their rental vehicles, daily and weekly rates. Include unlimited mileage, so if you're planning on hitting Reno after the show, something like that, hey, you pick up a rental car down there for cheap. These are all on the Classic Gaming Expo's page, folks. Just go to the registration page and then click the link that says discounts, and you'll be able to see all this stuff for yourself. But you want to pre-register, folks. If you want a cool souvenir, which is your name badge with your name on it, pre-register. Save yourself $5. Save yourself the wait. Get yourself hooked up. And finally, what I'd like to talk about in regards to the CGE pre-show show, and then we're going to get the heck out of here and get some more work done before the show, what we are going to do at the show. We've got a lot of cool things lined up, and not everything's set in stone yet. I hate when these things run to the last minute. We're still working with the X-Arcade folks. They've said that they'll give us a controller to give away, and we can't think of a better way to give away an X-Arcade controller than a Robotron contest. We're going to let you play Robotron on Twin Galaxy settings, which means all of your scores will be eligible to be put in the Twin Galaxies Book of World Records. So you definitely want to get in on the contest for that. And you get to play Robotron with a arcade quality double joystick control. It's a beautiful thing. So we'll be giving away an X-Arcade controller. Details are going to be at the show probably. We may not be able to get them out. We'll probably put them on the website once we get everything figured out in terms of being able to secure the controller and whatnot. So we're going to have a Robotron contest. Of course, we're going to have a listening booth. There's going to be a laptop with headphones, basically so that you can listen to old episodes of Retro Gaming Radio and actually see them in their video form when we still ran slideshows and movie clips. There's a clip of Don Bluth in an early interview that you wouldn't want to miss. Great stuff. So we're going to have a listening booth set up. We're going to be having a limited edition 10 set only Classic Gaming Expo 2002 Year 3 CD-ROM. It's hand-signed, written out, basically says Classic Gaming Expo 2K2, and it's going to be numbered 1 to 10. The first 10 people who buy one for $14.95, we're not going to rake you over the coals. Same price as regular. Got to be at the show to get one. When the 10 are gone, they're gone. That's it. You'll be able to order one off. You'll be able to order a regular set off the web later, but there's only going to be 10 at the show. So please, I'm not going to hold one for anybody either, so please don't write. You show up at the show and get to the booth quick if you want one, because I don't think the 10 are going to last very long. Let's see, what else we got going on? We got a whole bunch of stuff going on. We're going to be using the X-Arcade. We're going to be showing off the X-Arcade, playing classic games on MAME that we're legally allowed to let you play. We actually managed to come up with quite a few that were legal to play. because we own boards and we own hardware, so that's a good thing. You'll be able to play quite a few games. We're going to be showing off the X-Arcade running on a Dreamcast adapter. We're actually going to have a Dreamcast set up on a composite monitor, and you're going to be able to play Dreamcast games with the X-Arcade. We're also going to be, compliments of Digital Leisure, we're going to actually be offering you to let you play Dragon's Lair and Space Ace on the X-Arcade. That's way cool, folks. You haven't played Dragon's Lair until you played it on the X-Arcade. And we're also going to be having a Digital Leisure giveaway, which we haven't solidified the details yet. Here's what we're trying to get. No promises. We're trying to get a full collection of Dragon's Lair 3D figurines from Digital Leisure to give away as some sort of a promotion or a prize for playing Dragon's Lair on the X-Arcade. It's a cross-promotion thing. Once we work out the details, we'll post it on the site so you guys don't have to come to the show wondering what's going on. And of course, we're going to have interviews going on all the time. Hopefully, we plan to have Don Bluth stop by the booth and give us a little mini interview. We're hoping to have the programmers come by, and of course we want the fans to come in and contribute to the show. We'll be playing your sound bites here in future shows. We're probably going to have like 2 complete shows for CGE follow-up. It's just crazy the amount of information that we're going to have to relate to you folks. One question about our participation at CGE that I've had a lot of people ask about is, can we run a webcam or do some sort of a live broadcast from this Classic Gaming Expo? And the unfortunate truth behind it is the conference room is not equipped with any sort of internet connection. There's no broadband hookups. There's like 1 or 2 phone lines, and they're all used for credit card machines. Basically, there's no way for us to hook into the net to give you, trust me, if we could give you a streaming show, we would. I've got people that would put up bandwidth and mirrors and everything else to make that happen, but we can't get out of the building, folks, and it's part of the problem. And I'm hoping in future years we'll be able to do that. But trust me, we're going to give you the full skinny on the next show. We may even do a small post-Classic Gaming Expo 2K2 teaser show right after we get back. On Monday, we may record it and release it like on the 15th to give you guys a teaser of what's coming up on the next show, because there's going to be so much stuff for us to do. Brian's going to be one busy little producer. So we've got all sorts of cool things. Now for the special giveaway, random giveaway that I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Aren't you glad you stuck around? We have so many people to talk to. I've gone over who's going to be there that we're really looking to get interviews with. Don Bluth, David Crane, Rick Dyer, Steve Cartwright, Gary Kitchen, Jay Smith. All of these people we're going to try to tag to get interviews. What we want from our listeners is a list of the most important question you can come up with, the best question you can come up with for any of these celebrity guests. If you need to look at the list, go to cgexpo.com, go to celebrities, and write us in, please, 1 submission per listener. Please pick the person and give us a question. As long as your question's like even partially legit, you're not asking what color their eyes are or something like that, but you took some time in thinking about it, we're going to throw your name in a hat. And what we have up for a prize, and we're going to post a picture of it on the site, it'll probably be there by the time you get to listen to the show. We're going to be giving away a genuine Pac-Man quilt, a blanket, made by my wife by hand. It's a handmade, one-of-a-kind deal. It's made with original Pac-Man fabric from Midway. It's a licensed, original material of Pac-Man fabric. My wife found this on some freaky auction, paid a fortune for it because it is authentic, and made a handmade, awesome quilt. And we're going to have a picture of it up. You guys are going to go nuts. I don't even want to get rid of it, but you know what? This is the sort of thing this is the promotion to end all promotions, folks. We want to hear what you have to ask these famous celebrities from Classic Gaming's history, and in return for your questions, we're going to put you in this drawing. And at Classic Gaming Expo, we are going to announce the winner live on microphone for everybody to hear. If you're at the Classic Gaming Expo, we'll have the quilt there for you, and you can come and pick it up. If you are not there, you do not need to be present to win. We will ship it to you. So, with that being said, when you submit your question to us, include your snail mail address. Please. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get it to you. We'll have to write you and hope your email address didn't change because of spam or whatever. Just include your address. with your question, and make sure you tell us who it's going to. Don't just say that guy that did this. Go look the guy's name up. Help us out. And we will put these all together, and we will pick the best of them that we feel best meets the needs of the show, best meets the needs of our listeners, yada, 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 yada. And we will try to get these questions posed to the programmers. So in some sense of the word, you're actually going to get to be at the Classic Gaming Expo. And you get a chance to win a totally killer Pac-Man quilt. It's just totally cool. If you've got kids, they're going to want it. Even though they don't know what Pac-Man is, they're going to want it anyway because it's just cool. So that's what we're doing. That's some of the promotions we're doing for the show. And I can see by the old timer here, we're running over an hour. I'd like to keep it in an hour if possible. We've managed to cover everything I've wanted to cover. Suffice to say, in 10 days, we're going to be at the Classic Gaming Expo, and we hope, Brian and myself are going to be going nuts, so I hope to see you guys there. Please stop by the booth. We're going to have all sorts of cool production stuff for you to look at. You'll be able to listen to some old shows, pick up a CD if you want it. And hopefully, give us some sound bites. Tell us what you think of the show, good or bad. And we're gonna be playing these sound bites throughout the whole year. So please do stop by the booth. Once we know what our booth number is, which I'm assuming we'll know before the show, we'll post it up on the Retro Gaming Radio site. Okay, well that's gonna wrap it up, folks, for the August 2002 Classic Gaming Expo 2K2 pre-show edition of Retro Gaming Radio. This is Shane R. Monroe saying, until next time, keep it retro.